Please subscribe to our channel, Pacific Front Untold, and be sure to leave a comment after watching a video.
August 1945. Soviet tanks rolled into Manchuria, crushing Japan's grip on the region. But was this a heroic liberation or a strategic power play? The Kwantung Army had terrorized Manchuria, an area comprising three provinces, Liaoning, Jilin, and Heilongjiang, in northeast China, which had been separated from China proper by Japan's establishment of the puppet state Manchukuo in 1932. While Chinese officials and the last Qing emperor, Puyi, nominally staffed and headed Manchukuo, no decree was issued without the guidance of Japanese advisors. The imperialist rule that had oppressed the local population since 1931 was shattered in weeks by the Soviet Red Army's campaign, codenamed Operation August Storm. The importance of the Soviet offensive in breaking Japanese resistance in the final days of World War II cannot be overstated, though it remains understudied. Some historians, including Charles Stevenson, argue that the Soviet attack, combined with the atomic bombing of Hiroshima, convinced much of the Japanese leadership to accept the Potsdam Proclamation. The Soviet role in ending Japanese rule in Manchuria is undeniable. However, calling it a liberation oversimplifies the Soviet motives and methods. While local Chinese civilians welcomed and aided the Red Army in expelling the Japanese from northeast China, the Soviets' self-serving geopolitical aims and occasional misconduct cast doubt on whether liberation fully captures their actions. During Operation August Storm, over 1.5 million Soviet troops engaged the already weakened Kwantung Army across Manchuria's vast frontiers, ending the Japanese occupation. Despite formidable challenges posed by Manchuria's terrain and climate, which hindered the transport of heavy machinery, particularly the difficulty of transporting heavy machinery through conditions ill-suited for modern warfare, the Red Army applied lessons learned from years of combat to capture Harbin and Mukden, present-day Shenyang, in weeks. The speed of the Soviet conquest, enabled by strict secrecy and bold initiative, rivaled the rapid campaigns of modern warfare, such as was comparable to the speed with which Nazi Germany's conquest of France in 1940. The Soviet victory in Manchuria, combined with the detonation of the second nuclear bomb over Nagasaki on August 9, 1945, directly contributed to Japan's unconditional surrender on September 2, 1945, and the collapse of Manchukuo. Yet, was the Soviet offensive an act of liberation or opportunism? The Soviet Union undeniably freed Manchuria from the egregious abuses of Japanese rule, paving the way for its return to China under the 1945 Sino-Soviet Treaty of Friendship. Notably, the Red Army's rapid advance forced notorious Japanese scientists such as Shiro Ishii of Unit 731 to destroy their biological warfare facilities, halting their sadistic human experiments. Survivors of Unit 731 were then able to share the horrors that had plagued Manchuria with the world. The dismantling of the Kwantung Army also ended the embezzlement, extortion, graft, sales of narcotics, and expropriation by Japanese officers in Manchuria for personal enrichment, along with oppressive taxes that left local residents in appalling conditions. Dispossession, displacement, hunger, and compulsory manual labor, offering meager pay even by wartime standards, were hallmarks of life under Japanese occupation. However, Soviet actions were not without flaws. While less systematic than Japanese atrocities, Soviet misconduct, such as the attack on approximately 1,500 Japanese civilians near Gegenmiao, compromised their liberator image. It may be unrealistic to expect an army of 1 million soldiers to operate without any infractions, yet Soviet conduct in Gegenmiao was particularly compromising. Near this Manchurian village, a Soviet armored unit reportedly attacked approximately 1,500 Japanese civilians. Given that most Japanese men had been drafted, these civilians were likely women, children, and elderly settlers. Moreover, Soviet correspondence reveals that Stalin entered the Pacific War not only to defeat Japan, but also to secure geopolitical gains. Although Stalin failed to acquire Hokkaido, he secured southern Sakhalin, the Kuril Islands, and temporary control of Port Arthur and the South Manchurian Railway, territories and assets Japan had taken from Russia in the Russo-Japanese War of 1904 to 1905. These gains strengthened Soviet influence in East Asia, notably through the railway's role in China's post-war development. The Soviet invasion was pivotal in ending the Japanese occupation of Manchuria, but its self-serving motives and occasional misconduct, such as attacks on civilians, left a mixed legacy. Further studies on the Asian theater of World War II are needed to fully understand the complex consequences of Soviet actions for Manchuria and China.